All right, everyone. Yesterday you had the presidential alert sort of text message that went out. I saw it on TV because the TV happened to be on at the time, and I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. It's a FEMA alert. The president can basically press a button and send an alert out to people in case of an emergency, I suppose. Major disaster. There's an EMP headed for Earth. In the next 24 hours, you should get a Faraday cage going or something. Look it up on Google. Don't worry, you can figure it out. Protect your laptop and other important things. Or a nuclear strike or something. People were actually talking about that. And they were all up in arms. And I thought to myself, how the hell is this any different? Number one, I believe Obama wanted to implement such a thing. I believe at the time it was actually sort of they were banding around the idea of doing that, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Another thing, how is this different from the emergency alerts that already exist? How is this, when people are trying to make it political, they're like, well, Trump communicating with the whole population, how terrible. This is an emergency alert system. This isn't him saying, oh, vote for Trump in 2020 or hey, confirm Kavanaugh and trolling people like he does on Twitter. This is nothing more than the modern technological extension of an alert system that's been on radio and TV now for half of forever. It was implemented because it's a good idea. The idea that people can be kept abreast of the situation. What do people do now? In case of an emergency, a lot of people will be, because they're joined at the hip with them, on their smartphones. They're not at a TV. They don't have the radio on. The smartphone is the radio and TV at this point. The smartphone for a lot of people, for me, it's like my laptop. I do everything on here. I don't really like phones, but 99% of people, they have a smartphone at this point. They're not Luddites like me. If you want to send out an emergency message to people who maybe they're not around a TV or a radio around anyone else who is at the time because they just use their phones, it makes sense to have this in place because in a situation, major earthquake, take cover. Major thunderstorm developing, 5 minutes inbound, nuclear strike, you got half an hour to get to a proper shelter. You want people to be aware of that insofar as you're able. You want everyone to be aware of it as quickly as possible. You don't want to have them wait until the next time that they pass a store that has a TV or something on. It's like a lot of people don't even watch TV anymore, so they're not going to get the emergency alert message. This is nothing more than an advancement in technology for the emergency system, and it's not political. Trump is not. So I think a lot of people are assuming that Trump is going to go FDR fireside mode with this and start making monthly political pitches straight to your smartphone and start texting you about how you should vote Republican. If he were to do that, it would be a big problem. It would probably be found unlawful by the courts, and it would probably result in his impeachment. So I wouldn't worry about this. Then you've got the normal crowd of maybe conspiracy-minded people who are like, oh my God, he's implementing this because a nuclear war is coming. He's implementing this because Nibiru is on its way, and it's the normal stupidity. But I think it's more stupid when you see it coming from people who are assuming that this is going to be used as a political campaign strategy. Trump wants to be able to text message your phone. It's so horrible to think of that happening. It's not really Trump doing it. You do realize that. He's not writing these emergency messages saying, okay, type this in and have it sent out. No, it's a partially automated FEMA-controlled system. And remember, even if it would be funny if this were to be the case, Trump won't be the president forever. The next president will have the same ability to press a button and have an alert message or whatever sent. This is essentially, in the case of an inbound, massive, national-level disaster, something absolutely catastrophic. The New Madrid is about to pop off another one. Yellowstone just rose 10 feet in a day. It's going to blow up. The Russians have bombed Pearl Harbor. Now there are missiles on their way everywhere across the United States. You want people to know about that. You want them to be able to take active countermeasures. But I guess preparation is a bad thing. It's like with the FEMA camps, which, by the way, everyone thought, well, it's not for immigrants. At the time, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when some of these FEMA camps were still being put up. And I pointed out that I thought it had to do with, an incoming immigration related disaster, which it appears to be. And a lot of people thought it was it's prison camps for martial law. Oh, they have all these plastic coffins. Oh my God. After Katrina, you begged the federal government to take greater preparations for such a disaster. Those coffins are for the disposal of bodies so you don't get cholera outbreaks. Yeah, they're cheap. They're fucking, plastic unlined coffins. Not the greatest they can be. But if you got 10, 20,000 casualties, it's better than nothing now, isn't it? These are places essentially with stocks of food and medicine and stuff. They're not going to be comfy. But in the immediate wake of a natural disaster on a significant order of magnitude, you're going to need to have those camps for people who don't have shelter or really anything else. They begged the government to prepare. They up and down, they excoriated the Bush administration for his carpetbagging and inept Katrina response. The federal government responded by building a bunch of these so-called camps, which are really just temporary centers where people can get soup and a shower, or dispose of the dead, basically, in what unfortunately be massive graveyards. Look a little bit like a miniaturized version of Arlington at some point, only maybe without so many fancy crosses. They begged for it, and then when it was completed, they turned into a conspiracy. Or Jade Helm, they're like, well, our Middle Eastern policy seems to be inept. Jade Helm, I, again, correctly predicted, was an exercise for Middle Eastern affairs. If you turned the map 45 degrees, it looked a little bit like the Middle East, including the Gaza Strip, which was the part that sort of gave it away. Southern California being Gaza sort of makes sense, highly urban, quite dry, hostile, and filled with a lot of crime, so very much like the Gaza Strip, I think. Also surrounded by areas that hate it. So if you looked at the map, it's like this is a preparation exercise because our troops can't go to the Middle East and wander around freely. They can't go walking through Iran. They can't go randomly into outside of agreed upon boundaries like Turkey and Egypt. The Jordanian government doesn't really care if U.S. troops wander around at whim. Israel doesn't care that much, and they can't go into Syria though. Even the Iraqi authorities aren't going to say, hey, yeah, Uncle Sam, okay, you can train 10,000 troops here, don't worry. We have no fucking problem diplomatically with this. It's not going to seem conspicuous to our population. So they did the next best thing. They took the southeastern quarter of the U.S., made it look kind of like the Middle East, and did training exercises to see about movement in urban areas, blending in with the population, mass troop movements, the movement of armor and so forth, goods around, how it could be accomplished. Yeah, just basically documenting things, probably also transit time, in a rough sense perhaps. Are our troops capable of withstanding the kind of temperatures when they're going to be out on patrol for extended periods in the hot sun of the fucking, Mojave or something, patrolling the Mojave. And so it was a good training exercise, but people thought that it was like a martial law sort of staging operation. I'm like, it's never going to happen. There aren't enough troops in the country. If you were to take all active and guardsmen, all the police, all private security firms, and every mercenary in the country and pool them together, it wouldn't be enough to quell insurrection across the whole geographic extent of the United States. You'd run out of fuel very quickly, and those mercenaries would no longer be driving around in armored vehicles. The troops would no longer have Predator drones or tanks because they would be useless. You wouldn't have any fuel for them. The economy would break down. You'd end up with guerrilla warfare, door to door and man to man. As far as the text message system, it's just another layer of protection for the population. I say this as someone, I'm deeply anti-authoritarian. I do inherently distrust government, whether it's Trump leading the government or not. But this particular thing, this is just a FEMA alert system. This is, hey, the water's rising, get to high ground. Idiot. That's basically what it's about. Yeah, Trump is going to campaign using his special system. Yeah, you can campaign to the population on Twitter. Trust me, if you get a smartphone, there's a good chance you got Twitter on there or some other platform that's tied in with it enough so that you're still going to get that presidential alert because everyone will be talking about it. Look, CNN and Fox will talk about every tweet he already makes. Everyone already knows when Trump says something. He wouldn't need this kind of system for political reasons. That's about all. Peace out.